From hunter, explorer to hero. This is the extraordinary journey of Davy Crockett. In 1786, in the wild frontier of Tennessee, a boy was born into a poor family with many children. That child was David Crockett, later known to the world as Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier. His parents were just ordinary people, struggling with life all year round. Davy's childhood was not as peaceful as in fairy tales, but a series of days of deprivation, hardship, and harshness. From a young age, Davy had to be independent. He did not have the opportunity to study properly. Most of his time was spent in nature, in the vast forests that stretched across Tennessee. It was there that the mountains, rivers, streams, and wild animals became his real school. It is said that since he was only 10 years old, Davy had already picked up a hunting gun. Shooting birds, trapping animals, tracking deer and bears, all of these survival skills were self-taught, with natural instinct and courage. There is an anecdote that Davy could hit a small squirrel from a great distance with just a single bullet. And many times, the boy directly faced the giant black bear of the Appalachian Mountains, a ferocious beast that even experienced hunters feared. But Davy's childhood was not all adventure. He had to leave home and wander for many years because he was afraid that his father would force him to go to school. On that journey, Davy did many jobs: herding cattle, cutting wood, working as a hired hand. It was this time of wandering across the frontier that forged his courage, free lifestyle, and the ability to integrate with all classes of people, from pioneers to natives. That rough childhood not only created a brave hunter, but also sowed the seeds for an American icon. A poor boy, but grew up with the spirit of the mountains, of freedom, and of bravery. That was the foundation for the legend named Davy Crockett later. Part 2. The Hunter. Frontier. Hero. As an adult, Davy Crockett quickly became famous throughout Tennessee, not only for his shooting skills, but also for his upright character and courage. He was not a noble or a professional soldier, but became one of the most formidable hunters and frontier warriors of his time. It is said that Davy once brought down a giant bear with just a single shot, and was still strong enough to skin and carry the meat back to the whole village. He regularly provided wild game meat for his family and neighbors, becoming a support for many poor people on the frontier. Not only was Davy a good hunter, he was also praised for his generosity and fairness. In lands where the law had not yet reached, where people lived by strength and faith, a man like Davy Crockett was a symbol of natural justice. He was willing to stand up to protect the weak, from the pioneers to the Native Americans who were being treated unfairly. Stories about Davy were spread by word of mouth everywhere. Once he fought off a pack of fierce wolves to save the villagers' cattle. Sometimes he hunted for weeks in the deep forest, returned with dozens of animal skins, and told colorful stories about his adventures around the campfire. People often called him King of the Jungle, a man who was both wild and kind. From a poor boy, Davy Crockett stepped out of childhood to become a living image of America in the early days of the frontier, strong, brave, and generous. He hunted not only for his living, but also for freedom, for ideals, and for justice for the frontier people. It was this period that transformed Davy from a talented hunter into a legendary hero, passed down by the people in stories, songs, and folk legends. Part 3. Soldier and Politician. From the mountains to the Parliament. Davy Crockett's life did not stop at hunting trips or battles with wild animals. Fate led him out of the wilderness and into another world, the politics of the young United States. In the early years of the 19th century, America was still expanding its frontiers to the west, and the Tennessee region where Crockett lived was at the forefront of the exploration. When tensions between settlers and Native Americans erupted, Davy joined the local militia. With his marksmanship and courage, he quickly became a respected soldier. It is said that in many battles, Davy was always on the front lines, never retreating. He not only fought well, but also often lifted the morale of his comrades with his humor and optimistic outlook. For him, war was not about personal glory, but about protecting his homeland and the people living in the harsh frontier. It was this reputation that brought Davy from the battlefield to politics. He was elected to the Tennessee State Congress and then to the United States Congress. This was a major turning point. From a hunter in the mountains, Davy Crockett became a legislator representing the people. What made him stand out in the Parliament was not his high education or his oratory skills, but his honesty, straightforwardness, and connection with the poor. He often said, "I only do what I believe is right, even if it displeases the powerful." In Congress, Crockett was famous for daring to oppose policies he considered unjust, even when it cost him the support of President Andrew Jackson, his former countryman and comrade. When Jackson proposed the Indian Removal Act, Davy strongly opposed it. He said, "A true American cannot be called free if he takes away the freedom of others." That stance cost him his seat in Congress, but made Davy Crockett even more respected by the people. He became a symbol of freedom, justice, and honesty, a man who dared to speak, act, and take responsibility. From a poor boy in the Tennessee mountains, Davy went a long way, from hunter to soldier to congressman. And no matter where he was, he always kept one thing: true to his beliefs and always stood on the side of the people. Part 4. The Last Journey, the legendary Battle of the Alamo. After leaving Congress, Davy Crockett faced a major turning point in his life. He did not want to return to his former life as a hunter, but he could not fit into a politics that he considered corrupted by greed. Then another call came, a call from faraway Texas. At that time, Texas was not yet a state of the United States, but was under the control of Mexico. Immigrants from America and Europe had poured in to reclaim the land, but the conflict with the Mexican government was growing fierce. The Texas Revolution for Independence broke out, and Davy Crockett decided to join. When he left Tennessee, he left a famous message: "You stay, but I will go west. If I do not find freedom here, I will find it in Texas." In 1836, Davy and a group of comrades arrived at the Alamo, an old Spanish fort in San Antonio. Here, a small force of less than 200 Texan soldiers, including Crockett, decided to fight against the mighty Mexican army of thousands of soldiers under General Santa Anna. For 13 days, the battle at the Alamo became a tragic epic. It is said that Davy Crockett commanded a small group of gunners, continuously shooting down enemy soldiers with his rifle. At night, he often told stories and sang songs to keep the spirits of the soldiers facing death. Although knowing the inevitable end, Crockett and his comrades did not run away. They fought to the last bullet, turning the Alamo into a symbol of courage and sacrifice. The death of Davy Crockett at the Alamo shook the whole of America. People not only mourned a hero, but also proclaimed him a legend. The Alamo became an immortal slogan in American history. Remember the Alamo. Remember the Alamo. In his final moments, Davy Crockett was no longer a politician, no longer a hunter or militiaman, but a national hero who had sacrificed himself for freedom and his belief in ideals. Part 5. Immortal Legacy, the image of Davy Crockett in American culture. The death at the Alamo transformed Davy Crockett from a real person into an immortal icon. His name was not only mentioned in history books, but also echoed in legend, music, literature, and cinema for nearly 2 centuries. Soon after the fall of the Alamo, stories about Davy began to spread throughout the United States. People said that he single-handedly took up a sword against dozens of Mexican soldiers, or that he fought to his last breath without fear. Although the historical truth may be different, it is these stories that contributed to the legendary image. In the 19th century, popular novels and folk ballads praising Crockett appeared everywhere. The image of him wearing a coonskin cap and carrying a rifle became a familiar symbol in the American mind. He was seen as the embodiment of the frontier hero, brave, free, upright, and close to nature. In the 20th century, Hollywood and television made Davy Crockett a pop culture star. The Disney television series of the 1950s created Crockett Fever, with millions of American children wearing raccoon skin hats. The song, "The Ballad of Davy Crockett," rang out across the country, making him one of the most famous, legendary figures in American history. Davy Crockett also appears frequently in textbooks, on monuments, and in campfire stories. He is not just part of history, but also part of the collective imagination. Today, more than 180 years after the Battle of the Alamo, Davy Crockett is remembered as a symbol of the American spirit, daring to be true to oneself, daring to stand up to injustice, and willing to sacrifice for freedom. In Tennessee, his home state, there are still museums, parks, and monuments named after Davy Crockett. In Texas, the Alamo is still a pilgrimage site for millions of visitors each year, and his name is engraved as one of the men who made it legendary. Crockett's legacy transcended his own life. From a poor boy in the mountains, he became one of America's greatest legends, a man who was respectfully called King of the Wild Frontier. Davy Crockett's life was an extraordinary journey, from a poor boy in Tennessee to a legendary hunter, a brave soldier, a straightforward congressman, and finally a fallen hero at the Alamo. He was not just a man, but also the embodiment of the pioneering spirit, courage, and desire for freedom of an entire nation. Davy Crockett left behind not only his exploits or anecdotes, but also a timeless message. Be true to yourself, stand up for justice, and be willing to sacrifice for noble causes. Today, when Americans talk about Davy Crockett, they remember not only a hunter in a raccoon cap or a warrior at the Alamo, but also a symbol of faith and freedom. Davy Crockett is proof that an ordinary person, through perseverance and courage, can become immortal in the hearts of humanity. And so the story of King of the Wild Frontier continues to live on, echoing in songs, movies, and in the hearts of those who love freedom, love justice, and love the pioneering spirit of America.